Nobody saw it coming. Not the tennis world, not the fans, and honestly, not even her. A 20-year-old from the Philippines, standing at the crossroads of two completely different sporting universes, received a gift that had absolutely nothing to do with a trophy, a ranking, or a prize check. And yet, for millions of people watching from across the globe, it meant more than any of those things ever could. Because sometimes the moments that hit the hardest aren't the ones you train for. Sometimes they're the ones that find you quietly and completely when you least expect it. This is one of those moments. And if you think you already know this story, stay with me because the part that made the internet completely lose its mind hasn't even started yet. To really feel the weight of what happened, you have to go back not to a tournament, not to a ranking milestone. You have to go back to a 13-year-old girl standing in Quezon City, Philippines, with a bag packed and a decision made that most adults wouldn't have had the courage to make. At an age when most kids are still figuring out their lunch table, Alex was boarding a plane to Mallorca, Spain, moving across the world to train at Rafael Nadal's academy, one of the most elite and demanding tennis institutions on the entire planet. Think about what that actually means. She left her language, her food, the streets she grew up on, the daily warmth of her family, all of it to chase something her country had never seen. Tennis wasn't the sport of the Philippines. Basketball was king. Boxing was legend. Tennis was something you stumbled across on a satellite channel on a slow afternoon. But Alex didn't chase what had already been done. She chased what hadn't been done yet. And she delivered in ways nobody could have predicted. She climbed to world number 2 in the junior rankings. She became the first Filipina in history to win a junior Grand Slam title, lifting the trophy at the 2022 US Open at just 16 years old. At 16, she was on the cover of Vogue Philippines at 16. But professional tennis is a completely different animal. The ITF grind, the qualifying rounds, the slow and sometimes brutal climb through rankings, none of that cares about your junior titles. It doesn't care about your Vogue cover or your viral speech. It only cares about what you do on court today against someone who wants the same thing you do. And 2023 was hard. 2024 was harder. Then came Miami 2025. And everything shifted. Ranked 140th in the world and entering on a wild card, Alex tore through the draw with the kind of fearless first-strike tennis that catches the entire tour off guard. She took out Grand Slam champion Jelena Ostapenko. She stunned 2025 Australian Open champion Madison Keys. And then she walked out and defeated world number 3 Iga Swiatek, one of the most dominant players of her generation, and became the first Filipina ever to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. In 12 months, she went from 140th in the world to 29th, from wild card to seeded player, from prospect to force. And when Miami 2026 came around, she didn't arrive as a Cinderella story. She arrived as someone who belonged. But before she even stepped back onto that court, something happened. Something that had nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with what this journey actually means. Keep watching because what happened between two Filipino icons in the middle of Miami is the moment everyone is still talking about. March 16, 2026, Miami, Florida. The Hard Rock Stadium is still days away from hosting Alex's return to the Miami Open, but she's not at the tennis venue. She's at the Quezon Center, home of the Miami Heat. And waiting for her, there is Erik Spoelstra, 3-time NBA champion, head coach of one of the most storied franchises in basketball history, and a Filipino-American who has spent his entire career navigating what it means to carry that heritage in a world that doesn't always see it. The two had first crossed paths back in 2023 when a 17-year-old Alex attended a Miami Heat game. She was outside the top 150 at the time. Still unproven, still climbing, still in that uncertain middle space between potential and arrival. That night also happened to be the night Spoelstra recorded his 700th career coaching win. A coincidence wrapped in something that felt almost like fate. Two Filipinos at different stages of greatness, sharing a room, sharing a moment neither of them had planned. 3 years later, they met again. And this time, everything was different. The Miami Heat documented the reunion and shared it across their social platforms, captioning it simply, "Just two powerhouses repping the Philippines at the highest level." But here's the part that turned a feel-good story into something the internet genuinely couldn't contain. It wasn't a quick handshake. It wasn't a posed photo op. The Miami Heat, an NBA franchise worth billions with a following that spans every continent, took the time to build a full tribute video, a proper montage, a story within a story tracing the arc from that first chance meeting in 2023 all the way to this reunion with Alex, now ranked 29th in the world, and Spoelstra, still one of the most respected coaches in the game. Nobody asked them to do that. No PR team mandated it. They did it because they saw something in Alex that went beyond statistics and scorelines. They saw representation. They saw pride. They saw what it actually looks like when someone from a community that doesn't often get centered in global sport does something that cannot be ignored. Fans felt it immediately. Comments flooded in. One person wrote that seeing two well-loved Filipino athletes in sports meet was just so genuinely heartwarming. Another pointed out that Spoelstra had apparently promised that if Alex came back the following year, he'd come watch her match in person. And somewhere inside all of that noise, Alex received something that no ranking point or prize money could ever replicate. She received the gift of being truly seen, not just by her own fan base, but by one of the most iconic sports organizations on the planet, standing beside one of the most accomplished Filipinos to ever coach at the highest level. The internet didn't just react. It erupted. But the story wasn't finished. Not even close. Because while the Spoelstra reunion was lighting up timelines, Alex was quietly making another move that sent her fans into a completely different kind of frenzy. Around the same week, she launched her TikTok account. Now, on the surface, an athlete joining a social platform sounds like a routine thing. But for Alex and for the community that has grown up watching her, this was a cultural event. Her bio read, "Things I do, fits I wear, places I go." Simple, confident, entirely her. Within hours, she had gained tens of thousands of followers. The WTA's official account dropped a wave and a green heart in the comments. Spotify Philippines welcomed her to the platform, and fans flooded in with the kind of messages that blur the line between sports enthusiasm and genuine personal affection, the kind that builds when people feel like they've watched someone grow up in front of them. And that's exactly what makes Alex's story different from a typical breakout sports narrative. Because her fan base isn't just a fan base. It's something closer to a movement. She has nearly 1 million followers on Instagram, more than double the following of higher-ranked players like Jessica Pagula, Madison Keys, and Amanda and Isamova. A day in the life video posted during Indian Wells became the most viewed content of the entire 2026 BNP Paribas Open. And it wasn't even close. During her breakthrough 2025 season, she became the first tennis player in Philippine history to break into the top 100, beat a top 5 player, reach a WTA Tour final, win a Grand Slam main draw match, and win a WTA Challenger title. Every single one of those firsts was celebrated not just by tennis fans, but by an entire nation that had been waiting for something like this for a very long time. And when she talked about what fame felt like back home, her honesty was quietly devastating. She described how strange it felt to walk the streets she'd known since childhood, to sit in restaurants she'd been going to her whole life, and suddenly have strangers stop her for photos. Normal in one sense, surreal in every other. But it was what she said next that the Filipino community seemed to absorb like a collective breath finally released. Read that back. A 20-year-old carrying the pressure of being a trailblazer in a sport her country barely followed a decade ago, found the clarity to articulate the soul of an entire community in 2 sentences. That's not just athleticism, that's leadership. And then, right when you thought the story had reached some kind of natural peak, she walked back onto the court and delivered something that left everyone breathless all over again. March 19, 2026, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami. Alex, now seeded 31st, steps out for her round of 64 match. A year ago, she was a wild card who surprised everyone. Today, she has a first-round bye. She is no longer chasing the dream. She is defending it. Her opponent is Laura Siegend of Germany, 38 years old, a seasoned veteran who has been competing at the professional level for longer than some of the tour's younger players have been watching the sport. Siegend is not someone you overlook. She is not a stepping stone, and she made Alex work for every single point across a match that stretched to 3 hours and 20 minutes in the Florida heat. Alex came out fast, building a 3-0 lead and looking every bit like someone who had done this before. But Siegeman slowed things down, extended a game past the 10-minute mark, and gradually clawed her way back to level the set at 3 games all. The tension in the closing stretch was genuine. Alex lost the first set in a tiebreak, and that matters more than it might sound because she walked into this tournament with 390 ranking points, expiring the moment the draw began. Points that represent nearly a quarter of her entire ranking total. Losing that set in that moment in that tournament could have been the beginning of something darker. The pressure was completely real. But Alex is not the kind of player who crumbles under pressure. She is the kind who walks through it. She broke Siegend early in the second set. She broke her again in the third. She controlled the tempo, trusted her game, and won. And when she sat down with the press afterward after 3 hours and 20 minutes in the Miami Heat against a 38-year-old doubles Grand Slam champion who refused to make it easy, this is what she said, fresh as a flower. After all of that, if that line doesn't tell you everything you need to know about who Alex is, nothing will. She added that returning to Miami in the third round after arriving last year as a wild card said everything about how much she'd grown as a player and as a person. But here's the thing. As beautiful as that win was, the result wasn't even the biggest story waiting for her. What comes next? What's sitting in the round of 32? What's on the line for her ranking? And what it all means for the trajectory of this entire journey, that's where this story truly explodes. Her next opponent, Magdalena, had just knocked out world number 3, the very same player Alex famously defeated in last year's quarterfinals. The bracket has tightened, the stakes have multiplied, and underneath all of it sits the cold math of the WTA's rolling ranking system. Every win rebuilds the ground she's standing on, and every loss risks dropping her back outside the top 50. She is defending the most consequential result of her career with the entire tennis world now fully prepared for what she can do. The surprise factor that helped carry her through Miami in 2025 is no longer a weapon she can reach for. Every opponent has watched the film. Every coach has mapped the patterns. What she has instead is something rarer and more enduring than surprise. She has belief, not the naive kind that comes from never being tested, but the kind that's been built through being tested and coming out the other side. Her serve has better placement and variation than a year ago. Her tolerance for long baseline exchanges has grown. She's more selective, more measured, more dangerous in the moments that matter. This is not the same player who shocked the world as a wild card. This is a more complete version of her, and everyone on tour knows it. So here we are. A 20-year-old from the Philippines reunited with a Filipino-American NBA legend on the eve of her biggest tournament of the year. A TikTok debut that became a cultural moment. A 3-hour and 20-minute war on court that she walked away from smiling with a quote that will get replayed for years. None of this was scripted. Every bit of it was earned. The question was never really whether Alex could go deep in Miami again. The question is, how deep does this story actually go, and when she finally lifts a WTA 1000 trophy? Because at this point, it genuinely feels like a matter of when, not if. The real question is whether the world will even be ready for just how loud that celebration is going to.